If you have 10 people in your organization, you add one more, one person changes in and out, you just changed your culture by 10%. That's crazy. And if you're a 5-person, it's 20%, right? When you raise enough capital to have 18 months of runway, at that point, you don't have the opportunity to pivot any longer. You don't have the opportunity to change strategies or to try new things. You kind of got one shot at it, where most startups actually take multiple different paths and you never know where they're going to end up. I mean, like, my number one piece of advice is start something. Like, just get started and do it. Entrepreneurship's really hard, but it's also really rewarding. So my number one piece of advice is that go start a company, or like go try a side hustle, or you learn so much whether you succeed or fail. It's really rewarding, and the world needs more entrepreneurs. Like, there's big problems. Technology has never been easier to access or create yourself, with the rise of vibe coding and other things like that. And so it's really easier to break in than ever before. And so go start something. That's the one thing I always encourage people to do, just because of all the benefits you get from it. Really early on, become great at communicating and expectation setting. And if you're a great communicator with all your stakeholders, even if like your stakeholder is just, you're a family member or best friend that you're talking to you about your idea, about your company, about how your company's progressing, once you get in that habit of communicating, it will make your life easier. People like to work with people that understand what's going on, that are being transparent, that are telling them like not only the good things, but also the hard parts about what you're doing. People like to be helpful in general, and it's really hard to be helpful if you don't know where an entrepreneur needs help. And so be great at communicating. That's my number one piece of advice. And there's a whole lot of ways you can do that depending on the stage of the company you're at. That's one of the key things that we look at to evaluate founders that are coming through, our process at Bread and Butter Ventures, is how good of a communicator are you with us? Because if you're a great communicator with us, that probably means you're a great communicator with your community, with your customers, with your current employees, and all the other stakeholders that you have around you that are really vital to an entrepreneur. Because it takes a village, right? It takes a village to build a startup. It takes, referrals and feedback and introductions and advice to build a successful startup. And so if you're a great communicator with us, you're probably a great communicator with everybody else. And if you're a great communicator with everybody else, people are going to be more likely to help you out. A big mistake, this isn't just me, but I certainly lived it myself. Once you raise venture capital as a founder, once you close a round of capital, you've just been pitching investors on what you're going to do, how you're going to spend their money, where you're going to go, the numbers you're going to hit. And so you feel a lot of pressure to start executing against that. And normally, especially for early stage founders, first thing you're going to spend your money on is making a hire, or making 2 hires, or making 10 hires, depending on what stage you're at. And so you're really anxious to get butts in seats and get people start working. So you hit those metrics, so you don't miss your first month or your second month. So you get off on the right foot. And this is no different for me. The last time that I raised venture capital for our company and needed to hire a CTO, never really found the right person that fit culturally, skill-wise. And a lot of that was on me, right? We weren't trying to pay market rates. And so I actually always recommend try and pay market rates and give equity to people if you have the ability to do it. Because even if it reduces your runway, having the right person in a seat will make you get so much more accomplished in a shorter amount of time. It's far more valuable. I'd rather have 12 months of runway with the right people than 15 months of runway with okay people, with C or B people. And we brought somebody in that on paper was wonderful and had a tremendous skill set, but culturally just didn't fit within our organization. And culture is so important, especially when there's 4 of you or 5 of you or 10 of you. Think about it. If you have 10 people in your organization, you add one more, one person changes in and out, you just changed your culture by 10%. That's crazy. And if you're a 5-person, it's 20%, right? And so it can shift, and if you make a mistake there, it can demotivate everybody else that's working for you, and their output actually becomes less. And bringing that new person in doesn't actually increase your productivity at all. And that was the case at my last company where we raised. I brought somebody in, and I knew when we were hiring him that he wasn't a fit culturally. But for me, I had been through a couple startups at this point. I'd sold a couple of companies, and I thought that my leadership and my presence was going to be enough to make up for one person, and that misfit. And I could change them. I could make it work. I could hold everybody together. And I was at the end of the day, I was arrogant, right? Like, it was arrogance, and I knew. It's funny because, like, I knew before I hired him it wasn't a fit, and that proved out true. And what happened was that everybody was demotivated, and I had an employee that had been with me for, a partner of mine that had been with me for years. And she came out, she's like, hey, he's got to go or I'm gone. And that was like the moment when we ended up parting ways with him. But it was too late at that point. We hadn't gotten far enough, and the company might have been flawed anyways. But what happened was we wasted 9 months. And when you raise enough capital to have 18 months of runway, at that point, you don't have the opportunity to pivot any longer. You don't have the opportunity to change strategies or to try new things. You kind of got one shot at it, where most startups actually take multiple different paths, and you never know where they're going to end up. And so for us, it didn't give us that chance to try something, fail, and then move to the next thing and try. We basically got one shot at it, and that one shot didn't work. And so we ended up having to move on from it. And it's largely because I made one bad hire, and it dramatically shifted our culture for the negative. And I wasn't a strong enough leader to hold it together. And so really, really important to make sure that you have not only the right skill set, but the right person for your organizations when you make early hires. And when you close a round of capital, while you are going to feel that stress, just like I did, to bring people in, it's not worth rushing it. It's worth waiting for the right person to put in a seat, or don't hire them at all. And you'll end up far better than you would if you brought the wrong person in. What makes a strong CEO, or how do you develop that muscle if you're a first-time founder? Or how do you know? I mean, so as a startup founder, as an entrepreneur, you need to have a tremendous amount of confidence. You have to go into it thinking, this idea, the thing I'm building, needs to exist in this world. What we're building can change the way people do X, Y, Z, whatever it is. You have to have that belief, because you're going to get told no so many times in your life. We've worked with founders that have gone out to raise capital and have pitched 300 people, and 296 of them have said no. And 4 said yes. But you have to get through those 296 no's, which is, it can be depressing. It is depressing. It is really hard mentally. It makes you question your hypotheses and what you're doing. And if you're not incredibly confident going into it, you're not gonna make it through those scenarios. And every company that's successful goes through near-death experiences. If you talk to any founder that's been successful, they go through those near-death experiences where the company's almost gone to zero. And to get through those, you have to be confident in yourself and your plan and your ability to find the right people, talk to the right advisors, make the right connection to give yourself a chance to succeed. And so I think, like, for people that are coming into it, the first step is to make sure you have confidence in what you're doing in your own abilities, and kind of go into it with a little bit of that, with that chip on your shoulder, or go into it with that belief in yourself, because a lot of people are going to tell you no. Now, you can also get yourself into trouble if you get over that line and move into like the arrogant world, or into arrogance. And because if you're arrogant, you can also kill your company. And for me, where that line is drawn is a confident person is confident enough to go out and talk to people that are really smart, and probably even smarter about them in specific arenas or verticals, and collect data points. And so they're confident enough to listen to people and collect data points. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do what those people say, but they'll actually really listen to and consider those things. The arrogant people don't even go seek that out. Or when they're put in a room with people that might have valuable input, it goes in one ear and out the other. And it's quite obvious as an investor, when you're in a room with somebody pitching you, which side of the line they're on. If they're on that arrogant line where they don't really care what you have to say, or they're on that, like, man, this person's really confident, but they still seem to be considering the words that are coming out of my mouth seriously. And so you have to watch that line, and because you have to be so confident in the startup world, it is a tough line to walk. But if you ever the best way I found to keep yourself in check is to have a couple people around you that can help keep you in check, where they can be like, Brett, you're getting big-headed. Like, we need to pop your bubble right now. And I had my wife was that for me. I had a couple other people, some really good friends that were that for me, where they were able to help bring me back to earth in the times where things were going really well and I felt like I could do no wrong. Because as soon as you get there, then things start going really wrong, and you can turn it around and lose everything. 8-year vesting schedule is really, really long if that's something that's been out and about. I'd say the market standard for vesting schedule is a 4-year vesting schedule. So this is what I'd recommend, right? You start it out, put yourself and your co-founders on a 4-year vesting schedule. This is what I would do. Like if I was going to start another company today, I would put myself on a 4-year vesting schedule with my co-founders. My co-founders, I expect the exact same thing out of them. And do a 1-year cliff, which means that if you leave within the first year, you give up all of your equity. But after that, you've earned 25% of it, right? So every year you earn 25% of your equity. But a 4-year vesting schedule with a 1-year cliff is quite standard in industry right now, and is what my expectations would be. After that first year, usually you'll vest daily or monthly. You don't have to go another year without vesting as well. But in reality, what actually happens, and this isn't talked about ever, is let's say you do have that example where somebody was on for 3 months or 6 months and they left not because they were doing something detrimental to the company. They weren't fired. They weren't a bad employer. But they leave for some other reason, right? Where, hey, it's just not working or life happens. Usually what happens, even if you're on a 1-year cliff, is the remaining co-founders say, hey, we really do appreciate you staying. And even though you haven't vested, you haven't hit that 1-year cliff yet, we want you to have a little bit of your stock still. And so in exchange for that, I want you to sign a separation agreement that says you'll never sue us, right? So as the founder, the existing company gets something in return for it, which is a legal agreement that says like, hey, this is the agreement we came to. We gave you some stock, even though we didn't have to. And you agree to be a supporter of ours and to not disparage us and all of these different things. And that's actually usually what happens when there's a separation of co-founders, is some of that stuff that hasn't vested still gets delivered, a percentage of it, so they can have some ownership. And in most cases, those people did add value, right? Like they actually help, and they deserve a little bit of it, even though they have a 1-year cliff. So now if it's somebody that's been acting terribly and against the best interests of the company, I wouldn't expect that. Fundraising in general is a momentum game, and it's and so you can and venture capitalists talk to each other. So if you're pitching a whole bunch of funds at the same time, if one says no and the next says no and then the next says no, there's a good chance that other funds are talking to each other. Hey, have you seen this deal? Especially like I do a lot of food tech. There's not a lot of food tech funds, and so oftentimes we share deals together that we're looking at, or somebody will send me a deal that, oh yeah, I'm already talking to them. Oh, what do you think? And so if somebody's going to say no, while I like to think I'm a complete independent thinker and it doesn't matter what anybody else says, like that's just not human nature, right? Like it's really hard if everybody else is saying no. Even if I'm like ultimately confident in this idea and this team, I'm questioning myself. I'm just like any other human being would. Like, what am I missing? What am I doing wrong? How do you overcome it? And so it can be really hard for a founder to overcome it. And sometimes they can't. Like sometimes it's unovercomable from a momentum standpoint. A couple things you can do, and I actually do think it's a best practice when you fundraise to go pitch as many people as you can as quickly as you can. So you want to condense it. And we can talk about why, because basically you want to create FOMO. So you have to take that path.